Keep listening, keep learning, the Tom Daniel Show. Keep listening, keep learning, the Tom Daniel Show.
You're listening to the Tom Daniel Show, and I'm your host, Tom Daniel. The organ grinder. All right, you've seen the image, even if you've probably never seen the real thing. A man turning a crank, a little monkey in a vest, a wheezing organ coughing out a tune while the monkey holds out a tin cup. It feels old, feels historic, feels like it ought to belong somewhere deep in American cultural memory. And yet, if you grew up in the South, you probably never saw one except on TV. Not once. Not on the sidewalk, not at the fair, not on a street corner. Which raises a deceptively simple question. Why not? Why doesn't this image belong to the South? Today we're going to use the monkey and the organ grinder to ask a much bigger question about Southern music, Southern culture, and why some traditions take root while others never do. Now, I did actually find a public domain audio of an organ grinder. It's hard to hear, but it sounds a lot like merry-go-round music.
Chico, speak as a gentleman. Now what you think, eh?
Hey there, stop that noise. Get out of here. Go on, I tell you.
What's the matter, you boss? You don't like the music?
So let's clear something up immediately. The monkey and organ grinder is not American. It's definitely not Southern. The tradition comes out of 19th century Europe, particularly Italy, where portable barrel organs were cheap, loud, and reliable. Italian street performers traveled with them across Europe and eventually across the Atlantic. The monkey was not decorative. It wasn't cute. It was labor. The monkey collected money, attracted attention, and turned a solo musician into a small spectacle. Now, when this tradition arrived in the United States, it landed most firmly in places like New York, Boston, Philadelphia, dense cities with heavy foot traffic and large Italian immigrant populations. The organ grinder works where strangers are plentiful and anonymity is normal. That's where the image settled. That's where it stuck. That's where it became a stereotype. But what about the South? At this point, somebody's got to think, well, certainly New Orleans must have had them. And yes, New Orleans did see organ grinders occasionally in the late 19th century. You know, it's a port city. There's a lot of immigration there, tourism, all the usual reasons. But here's the key distinction. They appeared. They didn't belong. They left no trace. They started no tradition. They produced no descendants. They just disappeared. And you can find newspaper references describing them as curiosities, oddities, things worth remarking on precisely because they didn't belong. The same is true in smaller measure of other port cities like Savannah and Charleston. Brief sightings, no adoption. So why not? Why didn't it stick? You see, the problem is not the monkey. The problem is the organ. A barrel organ produces sound mechanically. You turn the crank, and the tune happens whether you feel it or not. The player has no expressive control, no dynamics, no phrasing, no timing, no adjustment for mood, or audience, or the moment. The music doesn't listen back. And that's where it T-bones straight into Southern musical culture and loses. Southern music across black and white traditions is intensely relational. It expects call and response. It expects human breath, adjustments in real time, music that responds to the room. Even solo Southern musicians aren't really solo. I mean, they're imagining someone else. They're leaving space. They're inviting response. A fiddle tune speeds up because dancers lean in. A gospel line stretches because the congregation answers back. A blues phrase bends because the listener recognizes the pain. A barrel organ can't do any of this. It doesn't negotiate. It doesn't remember. It doesn't really even care who's listening. It just happens. You're listening to The Tom Daniels Show, and we'll be right back.
What are you waiting for? The Tom Daniels Show. Daniels Show. What are you waiting for? The Tom Daniels Show. Daniels Show. What are you waiting for? The Tom Daniels Show.
Welcome back to The Tom Daniels Show. You know, I would have never believed Mary Mack could actually pull off an organ grinder version of our show's theme song. But then again, Mary Mack is the world's most perfect band. Now, we've been talking about the organ grinder, and before we go any further, we need to clear up a common misunderstanding. The organ grinder was not invented by one person, and it wasn't invented as a musical instrument in the way Southerners usually mean that word. It was really a technology, a machine, developed gradually by European craftsmen, mainly in Italy and parts of Germany. By the late 1600s and early 1700s, builders were creating small, hand-cranked mechanical organs. They were portable machines that could play music automatically. By the early 1800s, that design had stabilized into what we recognize as the classic organ grinder. And the organ grinder is what happens when technology tries to standardize sound before recording technology ever existed. So, how does it actually work? Well, inside the box is a wooden barrel covered with hundreds of tiny metal pins and staples. Each pin represents a specific note, a pitch, and how long that note lasts, or a rhythm. When the performer turns the crank, three things happen at once. The barrel rotates, the bellows push air through the instrument, and those pins lift levers that send air into specific pipes. But here's the crucial part. The tune is pre-programmed, like a player piano. The performer doesn't choose the notes. They don't shape the phrases. They don't control volume, expression, or emotional contour. All they do is turn the crank, and all they can really control is the tempo, slightly. And when the music starts and stops, there's no musician really involved at all, just somebody turning a crank. And once the barrel is set, the music will happen exactly the same way every time. That's why the organ grinder is really better understood as a pre-industrial jukebox than a traditional instrument. I mean, it does produce sound, but it doesn't listen. It doesn't respond to the room. It doesn't wait, bend, rush, or hesitate. And that's why the monkey is there. That's why the monkey enters the picture. The monkey's not decoration. The monkey solves a problem because the music itself is mechanically rigid and emotionally flat. The performance needed something alive. Motion, personality, interaction. The monkey collected coins, drew attention, and supplied the human connection that the machine couldn't provide. Now, once you see it that way, well, the whole thing really makes sense. The organ grinder represents an early moment when music was separated from human expression, sound without relationship. And that's exactly why it worked on European sidewalks, and exactly why it never took root in Southern musical culture, because Southern music expects the sound to listen back. Now, the monkey is there to compensate for something. It adds motion because the music can't. It adds personality because the sound can't. It adds relationship because the mechanism can't. In Southern music, the musician already provides all of that. See, you don't need a monkey when the fiddler can just wink at the ladies and make them scream and faint. You don't need a spectacle when the singer can pull you into the story. You don't need a trained animal when the audience already knows when to clap. And then there's also a geography problem. The organ grinder belongs to sidewalks, and Southern music belongs on porches and on church steps and in juke joints. It doesn't emerge from strangers and passersby. It emerges from people who already know one another. Porches, yards, church steps, front rooms, juke joints, fish fries, barbecue grills, these are durational spaces, not transactional spaces. The organ grinder plays at you. Southern musicians play with you. So, if we've never encountered it here, why does the image still linger? Because cartoons remembered it, vaudeville remembered it, films and TV remembered it. Now, I've never actually seen a monkey and an organ grinder with my own eyes, but I know exactly what it is because I didn't inherit it as a culture. I absorbed it mostly from cartoons like Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, Tom and Jerry, and Pinocchio, Lady and the Tramp, Charlie Chaplin, Mary Poppins, and from books like Madeline and Babar. Now, by the time most Americans encountered the monkey and the organ grinder, it was already a symbol, a visual shorthand for old-fashioned street music, divorced from any real place. It survives in memory precisely because it failed to survive in culture. The absence is the lesson. The South rejected mechanical music long before anyone gave it a name. Well, I guess that's not technically true. Maybe it would be better to say that the South never made mechanical music its public musical face, because the South did embrace radio and records and jukeboxes, I guess player pianos and parlors. What the South rejected wasn't mechanical music in general, it rejected mechanical music as public performance identity. Not because it was new, not because it was foreign, not because it didn't behave properly, it just didn't listen, it didn't wait or bend. Southern music demands reciprocity and participation, and a machine, even a charming one with a monkey, can never give you that. Even then, now that I think about it, I remember a couple of other Southern mechanical traditions. There were calliope boats on the Mississippi, steam organs at river fairs, and traveling medicine shows with mechanical instruments. But even there, the machine was the spectacle, not the center of musical identity. Now, I should add one more thing without derailing the entire episode, but I need to acknowledge the role of race and labor. The organ grinder tradition was often associated with poor Italian immigrants, sometimes criminalized, sometimes mocked, and sometimes treated as urban nuisance. Meanwhile, Southern street performers, like blues buskers, black street musicians, Sacred Harp singers, were deeply human and racially embedded into the culture. I'm not trying to moralize here, but the organ grinder carried immigrant class associations that just didn't translate into Southern racial and social structures. In the South, these types of things weren't divided by separate communities. There wasn't an Italian community or a Chinese community in large Southern cities as it was in the North. Southern cities tended to blend more fluently into one municipal identity. The monkey and the organ grinder never found a home in the South. Not because the South lacked curiosity, not because the South lacked cities, but because Southern music is built on human exchange, not mechanical delivery. If the South has a street music image, it's not a man and a monkey. It's three people, one instrument, a fourth person joining in late, and everybody knowing exactly when the song starts. This has been the Tom Daniels Show. Keep listening and keep learning.
Keep listening, keep learning, the Tom Daniels Show. Keep listening, keep learning. The Tom Daniel Show. Take a break from your usual routine and tune into the Tom Daniel Show. You'll discover the world of melodies and stories that you might not know. Keep listening, keep learning. The Tom Daniel Show. Keep listening, keep learning. The Tom Daniel Show.
What are you waiting for?
The Tom Daniel Show.
Daniel Show. What are you waiting for?
The Tom Daniel Show.
Daniel Show. What are you waiting for?
The Tom Daniel Show.